Welcome into the Pats Nation. I'm Corso. There's Catone. He's here. Joe's with us in the booth. You are watching us on YouTube, listening on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, 790 The Score here this morning, bright and early at 8 a.m. And hey, Joe's putting up that subscribe now. So make sure when you're on YouTube, either watching the show or our shorts, check those out because they're pretty funny. Give us that thumbs up, subscribe. And, we got goals to meet, right? Goals, Joe.
Get in the mix.
Yes. And get in the mix emailing us in our mailbag, corso.catone@gmail.com. And if you feel like it, you can call us in our heated hotline, 855-313-PATS message line 24/7. Leave us a message. Hey, 2 segments today, gentlemen. Weekly Rewind and Pat's Preview. Simple.
Yeah, there we go. Easy. Very easy. Tough this week. No football, Chris. Tough week.
I don't know
no
what
football.
the hell we're going to do. Battlehawks.
Daytona 500's on.
That is true. Yeah, Daytona's
Watch
on.
that. We can watch Daytona today, maybe. But
But we need to go back in the week, and we need to talk about Super Bowl 59, and we're going to do it in Weekly Rewind. Joe.
I'm going back through the week. About a weekly rewind.
Fly, Eagles, fly. Fly,
Hey,
Eagles, fly.
Hey, you played it last week, Chris.
Yeah. 40
You know.
40-22. Philadelphia takes care of the Kansas City Chiefs and shuts everybody up from now, and Taylor Swift and all those other fools over there, you know.
Oh, they booed her pretty good, didn't they, when they showed her on the Jumbotron?
Ooh, she gonna learn to stay in her lane. Stay in your lane,
Yep,
Taylor. Stay in your lane. You don't get booed. Don't piss the masses off. So, okay. So talking about this game, I want to get right into it. And we're gonna hear from us. We'll get some clips of us talking about preparation and for this game and breaking it down and what we thought. We're going to get to those.
We really got to listen to us. I hear enough for you. I don't want to listen to more of you. I mean, really?
Well, this first one is actually you. I mean, if you don't want to hear it, Mark, the Eagles can get to Mahomes. Joe, whenever you're ready, let's play it. That'll get us going.
Right? I think one of the big keys in this game is going to be the fact that I think Philadelphia's defense can get pressure with that defensive line.
Yeah.
Okay. 4 guys. They're not going to have to blitz. They're not going to have to do anything exotic. They're going to get pressure with 4 guys, and they're going to force Mahomes to have to. They're going to flood the zone on Mahomes. They're going to have drop 7 guys back, just like Tampa did the year Tampa beat them. Shaq Barrett was in the backfield the entire game. Every so often they blitzed in that game, but they flooded the zone. Mahomes had nobody to throw to, and they had a much better receiving core then than they do now, Kansas City.
There you go.
That was last Sunday morning, right? In our breakdown pre-Super Bowl.
Mark giving his pearls in that situation. You couldn't have been more. Yeah, you couldn't have been more right. I mean, I just don't, Mark. So let's talk about Kansas City on offense, Philadelphia on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Elaborate on all of that, what we just heard. So we heard that that was pregame, Catone, talking about that?
Chris, first of all, they had too much speed on the edges, way too much speed on the edges for that offensive line. And the other thing they do, Chris, is they rotate in guys. Yeah. So they don't just have 2 guys that come off the edge. They got like 4. They don't just have 2 defensive tackles that come in. They rotate 4. They got like 8, 9 bodies, Chris. So they're constantly fresh too, which we didn't even get into last week. But as you watch the game, there was like different guys on the field creating chaos and pressure. And the one thing the edge guys did, Chris, and I'll let you elaborate on this because you brought this up last week as a key. They didn't let Mahomes. They didn't overshoot Mahomes as they rushed him. They kept him in the pocket in their rush lanes, Chris. And you talked about that would be key because when he runs out, that's when all chaos breaks loose with him. Explain what they did with
I mean,
because they did and they did it all day. They were disciplined. They kept him in the pocket. And Chris, they beat his brains in. Oof. Oh my God, did they beat his brains in?
They hit him like 16, 17 times. In that last one where he coughed up the ball,
Oh,
when he was in the throw motion and he got hit in the chops right after that.
oh, he got blasted.
mean,
But
I-
explain what the ends would do.
I got a lot of respect for Mahomes. I really do. I really have a lot of respect for Mahomes. But wasn't it nice to see them for once in a while take a couple of beatings here and there?
Oh, did he take a beat? Listen, I give him credit, Chris. He kept getting up, but he got his behind kicked. I mean, they were just, he was like a rag doll back there. But explain what they were doing off the edge, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, Sweat was coming, and they were coming off the edge. Those two ends, and they weren't doing a ton. I mean, they had some twists, a few little stunts, things that they did to be able to keep contained. But last week I talk about the rush lanes, and I talk about not rushing, not getting too far upfield, meaning you're coming off the edge, and now you end up playing behind Mahomes. So the quarterback kind of steps up in the pocket, and then you got two angles. He's looking at everything like a V. And you see the two C-gap angles, and then Mahomes slips out to the sideline, throws back across his body, makes all kinds of things happen. Well, they did a nice job of getting on a 90-degree angle, the ends, and keeping their inside shoulder to his center and not allowing that lane underneath them to open up where Mahomes could just take off. Did a fantastic job. And they also kept that outside leg and shoulder open, ready, so that if he tried to roll, they could get off the block and get to
And
him.
a couple of times
nice job.
he did roll, but they got right. You're right. They got off the block and they chased them down.
Yeah, they were great. And that allowed so much to happen in the middle of the field. And what we talked about, I mean, you said it in that segment right there, in that little clip, where it allowed them to play zone over, in the center of the field. They didn't have to man up at all, really, but they did a little bit. They did some of that with Kelsey, didn't they? And we talked.
They did it. You talked about that last week too, Chris. You said that's going to be a key. This is what they're going to have to do with Kelsey, to play zone, but man up on Kelsey. And you're 100% right.
Joe, do we have that? Let's play it. Oh,
Kelsey.
Oh, there we go.
You and I talked about this. Philly's got good enough linebackers where you could play zone over and you could just play man on Kelsey all day long with a linebacker so he doesn't drift into those holes.
Yeah. See, I got to give you more of a little, give you another second
I
to get
thought,
that.
I
I'm
thought, I
jumping
thought
on
it
him,
was just,
Joe, play
Sunday
it.
morning. I thought it was Sunday morning.
Sometimes I'm pressing the button and then the button just doesn't work. I'm like, technology. If people saw my video on there, they'll see I have no hair. This is the reason why. Small moments like that.
Chris,
Not a
don't
choice.
listen to him. He's mixing a Bloody Mary over there.
That's what it is.
Yes.
No, he's bailing me out. Thank you. So, yeah, listen, what they do to Kelsey. I mean, we talked about this. We said they can play zone over and they can bump him off the line. They can jam. We said too many teams allow him a free release off the line. I can't friggin' understand why teams in the AFC allow this guy to get off the line on his own, to slip into those open holes in the zone, whether it's the low hole, the high hole, where Mahomes can roll and throw back across, and he's sitting there every single time. Why teams allow that, I don't know. Maybe because they don't have that front four, can't play in that zone, or the linebackers aren't as fast. I don't know. But in this game, you saw Braun.
Yep.
And they're missing. There was freaking Nakobe Dean.
Chris, they were missing their leading tackler. Imagine if he was on the field.
So they were able to knock him, jam him off the line, and then play that man on him. Somebody was stuck to him the whole game, whether it be that linebacker, DeJean a couple of times was stuck on him, but the rest of everyone was able to play zone.
And you know what, Kelsey? I mean, I'd be pissed if I was one of his teammates, Chris, because a couple of things. In the third quarter, they showed a couple of times he came off the line. He's not even running, trying to get open, Chris. It's like he gave up. He knew they were getting their ass kicked, and he was getting hit off the line, and he was doing a little stutter step. Like, he wasn't even running routes, nothing, Chris. He wasn't even trying to get open. It was basically like, this is useless. I can't do I got nothing. He gave up. And then they asked him to try to chip off the line, Chris.
That was such a desperation by Andy Reid at that point.
Chris, the guy, they were just blowing by him. He couldn't hit anybody.
You know what I found interesting? And again, Philly's defense in the middle of the field. When you have linebackers, now listen, Patriots fans, listen, Vrabel and company. When you have linebackers that can move sideline to sideline like that can run in the middle of the field, what it does for you, it allows you to take tight ends away, backs, check downs, all of that stuff gets taken away because you just can't. You can't find the holes because they close them so damn quick when you're that fast, and so, yeah, I mean, they were desperate. What I didn't understand, this is what I want to ask you. You talked about Andy Reid didn't make adjustments. Like he didn't do anything. And explain why to me. Okay, you're having trouble with these guys off the edge. Philly's a fast moving defense.
Yeah.
But they could be pushed a little too. Okay. Why weren't they going unbalanced? Why weren't they putting another lineman in the game on the end? Why weren't they going double tights at times and trying to run to the edge and
I'm going to tell you something.
take advantage of some of that speed?
First of all, Andy Reid panicked, Chris, number one. And Andy Reid, listen, up until that Super Bowl, they finally won the Super Bowl against Philly, that first Super Bowl. I get it. But Andy Reid, Chris, when he used to go up against Belichick, it was always Andy Reid could never win the big game. His clock management was bad. He couldn't make adjustments. Everything we said about Andy Reid before he started the Super Bowl run with Mahomes, all of a sudden came back into play on Sunday. It was the old Andy Reid again. Yeah. So, and I don't know. It's weird. Like, is it Mahomes or is Reid? I don't know. Whatever. But he looked like the old Andy Reid again, back to those days, right? And you know what's funny, Chris? Last week I said, listen, I think they're going to try to establish the run and force the run, Chris, to try to hold this team off. And try to create some play action. And you, very interestingly, you said to me, Mark, they're not going to establish the run. You said, I don't think they can, but they're not going to do it anyways. Andy Reid's going to stick to what he does.
Yeah,
that's what you said last week. Yep, you said he's going to stick to what he does, Mark. He's going to do what he always does. He's not going to do something different and try to establish the run. And you were right. He did. He didn't try to do anything different, and he didn't even adjust, Chris. He just kept running what they run, which was amazing to me.
Except the difference between a guy like that and Belichick is there would be something else in Belichick's bag to get to.
They had no counterpunch, Chris. They got punched in the face and they had no counterpunch. They didn't know what to do. They could there was nothing they could do.
And it seemed on the other side of the ball, I mean, you and I were the only ones seemed to be calling for a blowout in this game, Joe.
Oh, outside of Mahomes, I get Mahomes. Obviously, he's the difference maker. He's the reason why they win these Super Bowls, right? But outside of Mahomes, I think Philly's got the advantage on offense, and Philly's got the advantage overall on defense.
Top to bottom, they're a better team. Now we'll see. We'll see. So it's a point and a half, Mark. But what did we say the other night about that point? I think Vegas is trying to dupe everybody right now.
You think they want you to take Kansas City in this game?
Oh yeah, they see it.
Chris, you said Philly should, at the very least, minimum, be a field goal favorite in this game. Minimum.
I believe. I mean, look, this is a team that's going to score over 30 regularly. Kansas City did it once, and that was because of the short field, like you talked about. So Kansas City scored what, 32 points the week?
32 points.
So
32.
So Vegas knows what they're doing. They're trying to get everyone to dump money on Kansas City.
That's right. They did. And you know what? You and I had it.
Did you put 5,000 on Philly with that logic?
I couldn't do it because I would have screwed them over if I did that. I would have screwed them over. And I know we got the clip, but we're short on time. I want to talk about their offense now. I want to talk about Philly's offense because we're talking about a blowout. And this thing was, they manhandled this team. That offensive line. And they couldn't really run the ball. Listen, Kansas City did a good job on defense of getting in that box and stopping. And they made a decision. I'm going to take Barkley away in this game. And they did. For the most part, they took Barkley away.
But you and I both said last week, Chris, if they take Barkley away, Philadelphia has the weapons with Goddard, the tight end, with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith. They got the weapons. If you blow the box and you run blitz, they're going to eat you up because they got the passing game to do it. This is not a one-dimensional team, even though yes, Barkley dominated all season, but this team could throw the ball as long as Hurts didn't wet himself, and he didn't.
No, he had one bad play, and that was because the offensive line, something happened in that communication. Somebody came free right in Hurts' face, and he should have just eaten the ball, but he didn't. But other than that, yeah, I thought Hurts was spectacular in this game. He ran when he needed to run. There was some design quarterback runs that I didn't see much in the first time they played. But I thought the receivers were great, and I thought it had more to do with, I think Spagnuolo wet himself too, Mark. I'm going to say it. I mean, he's a good DC, but when you got...
But he's a one-trick pony, Chris. Does he ever
Yes.
change anything, Chris?
It
He
doesn't
does the
seem
same
like
thing
it.
every week.
And I don't think his blitz packages are all that exotic to begin with. The problem is you have these teams in the AFC that just can't, for some reason, they can't figure it out. You know, it's that Patriots effect where you're going against them and you do things you wouldn't normally do. Buffalo should have been able to beat this team. Baltimore should be able to beat this team. I mean, they are a very beatable team on defense. They are.
But, Chris, you said all year long that the NFC was the better conference. You said, Mark, listen, Kansas City's not going to win the Super Bowl. The NFC is a better conference. You talked about Philly. You were talking about Detroit. You said, Mark, they're a better. They're not going to beat whoever comes out of the NFC, and you were right.
The play callers. See, when we talk about coaching, people talk about all the coaching. You know, Andy Reid. Listen, it's about the play callers, and they're all in the NFC. You know, they're all. If you think about offensive play callers, well, now you can put Kellen Moore on there on that list because he had a gem on Sunday. You could put him in there. You got McVay. You have Shanahan. You have Ben Johnson. Right? I mean,
you got the kid McConnell from Minnesota.
O'Connell. Yep, you got O'Connell. You got. I mean, these are the guys, and then anybody coming off McVay's tree.
And I guess Reed is a good, decent play caller, but
yeah,
you know.
Who
but
else
he's the only one
AFC
in the
is,
But he's the only one in the AFC.
Well, now Josh McDaniels.
Well,
is.
now Josh is back.
You know, but honestly, I mean, you look at these types of play callers.
Speaking of play calls, did you see your buddy from Houston join Miami staff?
Oh, slow.
Yeah, slow it. Yep.
He joined the job.
He's the passing game coordinator for Miami.
Well, that offense is going to get better then. Vic Fangio had a fantastic game in this game too. But offensively, yeah. But Spagnuolo, when all else failed, he came and brought pressure, and that was all he had. And Philly did such a fantastic job picking it up. And by the way, the tush push was the tush push.
Oh, that was the tush push.
A real one.
They pushed him 3 yards into the end zone. They pushed him.
Well, we said it 2 weeks ago. You said Buffalo was not the tush push. That was just quarterback sneaks. What you saw was whatever they call it, Philly thing, a tush. I don't know.
Whatever the hell they call it, that was the real thing.
Whatever they call that stuff. So, again, it was a complete and thorough ass whipping from start to finish.
Listen, make no mistake, Chris. That's exactly what it was. They took them over their knee. They took out the belt and they gave them a whipping. That's exactly what they did. I know you're not supposed to say those things. It's not politically correct.
Well, it's what they
took
did.
The belt out and they whipped them.
They did it. I mean, they did it to him. They did it offensively, defensively, special teams, all of it. I mean, across the board.
Hey,
they
Chris,
just
Mahomes you looked at kept showing the Kansas City bench, and Mahomes is sitting there with his mouthpiece hanging out of his mouth. When the Patriots were down 28-3 to Atlanta, Brady was pacing up and down the sidelines.
Laser focus, he said.
Yep, laser focus. Mahomes was just sitting there like he was out of it, Chris. Like he didn't know what the hell to do.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because in the next segment, we're going to discuss Brady versus Mahomes, Patriots versus Kansas City Chiefs. But this portion of Weekly Rewind was presented by Corso and Catone, the real deal New England Field, Saturdays, noon Eastern. Hey, we got Catone's comments, B's and C's. We're going to start getting Yankees, Red Sox, so make sure you're tuned into that. But when we come back, more Weekly Rewind, no flipping. The real deal New England Field. What does that mean? We're like you. We're going to bitch about everything.
My opinion, our draft, the good, the bad, it was ugly.
These people, Mark, drive me freaking insane. Bananas.
It's so frustrating and aggravating. I can't take it.
The real deal New England Field. It's going to be real.
Back in with more Pats Nation. All right, Mark. So going into break, you brought up the Mahomes thing and the Brady. So it's a good time now to talk about Kansas City versus New England, Brady versus Mahomes, because all you heard about was the GOAT, right?
No, it got ridiculous. It was so ridiculous, Chris.
Who's the GOAT? And everybody kept saying, well, if they win, this is what happens. But you and I posed the question last week. What if
But
they
what
lose?
happens if he loses? Yeah, now what?
What happens if they lose? So what happens if they
Listen,
lost?
Philadelphia, Chris, got no respect. Let's face it, because everybody just kept talking about what was going to happen when he three-peated. Well, did anyone think they might get their ass kicked by the team that was the better team? Clearly,
No.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody thought that. It was really odd. Yeah, everybody kind of had it as a foregone conclusion that this is three-peat. So let's talk about what happens after the three-peat. What's funny too is we talked about the 07 Patriots a little bit when I said about pressure. You and I were on the phone.
Yep.
And I said because there's a certain amount of pressure about this three-peat thing, right?
Yep.
And so I was like, okay, how are they going to handle that? How are they going to handle that pressure and all that? Everybody talking three-peat. Like, how did New England handle the whole undefeated? Now, one's so much different than the other. But I mean, because undefeated is. But they didn't handle it well, and I thought this was one of the worst games Mahomes played, and
Chris, 2 interceptions, one for a pick six, a strip sack fumble. He drew an out pattern to Hopkins on the sideline. If the corner is just a little sooner jumping it, that might have been a pick six too.
Right. So this whole three-peat thing, and we had a couple of clips that we want to play from before. Joe, let's hear that Mahomes GOAT. Say,
Mahomes will be the GOAT next Sunday night. He can do things Brady could only dream about doing on a football field. By the way, go Giants.
Oh, listen, Joe, I hate you for reading that. Yeah. Okay.
I was like, when I saw this one, I was like, oh yeah.
You know what?
That's going in tonight.
You know what, Paul?
You better take a pill, something for this one.
Screw you, Paul. You know what? Have the eggs next time to call in heated hotline, okay? Instead of writing it down, hide behind your computer with a friggin' email like that. Okay, let's talk about this.
Oh,
All right,
God.
Mark, down. Address Paul's stupidity and nonsense.
I wonder if we're going to hear from Paul ever again.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think
No.
I don't think he's ever going to write or call in. Right now he's hiding somewhere.
We lost the viewer. We lost the viewer.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Screw him. But no, seriously.
That was he had emailed into the mailbag last week telling us that Mahomes was the GOAT.
He's not going to be. He's not close. Okay, and I'll let you talk about some of the things you saw in this game, but he's just not close to Brady. I don't think he was close to Brady coming in to this game. So
No.
to me, he didn't fall back. It's not like people say, well, he lost some ground now. I don't think he lost ground. He didn't gain ground. That's the whole thing. But he didn't lose ground in my eyes because I don't think he was close to being there to begin with. I don't think he's close to Manning either. I don't think he's Manning or Brady. I mean, what did you see in this game
I don't think
that
he's
tells
Montana.
you, some of the things he played bad? He could not lift that team, Mark.
Chris, listen. He got rattled. Without question, he got rattled. He didn't know what to do once he got rattled. He went to the line, Chris, and I don't see. Here's the thing. He went to the line, and I don't think he could even figure. He didn't really read or understand. I don't think, Chris, what they were doing, and I don't think, to your point, Chris, you said, but Mark, they really weren't doing anything exotic. They were sitting in what they were sitting in. They were just a better team, but he did have some checkdowns, Chris, which
Yes.
he started to hear ghost, because some of those were there, and you're like, Mark, there's an outlet he could hit. Maybe it'd be a 2-yard gain, but it wouldn't be a 7-yard sack. And he's not hitting it. Like, he's not seeing it. He's just turning away from it. He panicked, didn't know what he was seeing, got confused. I think that the pressure was confusing him. He looked up, he saw bodies, and he didn't know what to do, Chris. He forgot where he could go for checkdowns, I think. It was just a real bad performance on his part. Real bad.
Yeah. Ball wasn't coming out quick.
Nope.
Hit those. He had guys slipping out of the backfield that out in the flat there with maybe 5-10 yards in between, and he wasn't hitting them quick, throwing off back foot. When he couldn't slip out like he normally does,
Yep.
then he had a lot of problems. And what we talked about in the first segment, where what they were doing with Kelsey, he didn't have that security blanket in the center of the field. And yeah, Philly's good. I mean, they did what they did. But to not be able to come to the line and be able to see, okay, it's a 4-man, what can we do against 4? What can we do against this kind of, can I check out of things? Can I set protection better? Can I negate one side of the field? Can I negate one side of this line and do something on the other? Can I get myself rolled out?
So, Chris, you know what was interesting to me? And you brought up last week that without Andy Reid, he's lost, right?
Yeah.
And I found this interesting. Reid wasn't making the adjustments, Chris, which we were both shocked because you thought there were things that Reid could have did and he didn't do, right? But as the quarterback, Mahomes couldn't have checked down into something, even though Reid called something. He couldn't have set protection a different way or did something different and checked out of the play and called something else, put them in a different formation. He didn't do any of that.
No. I mean, there are checks to
As the quarterback,
There are checks to rollouts, to bootlegs, to negate some of that pass rush on the opposite side and get your protection set rolling with you, to get yourself a few extra seconds to throw the ball. And the one thing I didn't see the two of them communicating on the sideline.
No, you're right. When Mahomes went to the sidelines, Chris, it was almost like he just went and sat on the bench.
I didn't see Reid over there talking to him and saying, all right, this is what, what are you seeing? What we got to do? Brady, the difference with the GOATs, Joe, play that clip, please, with Brady.
Last Super Bowl I was a part of, I was 2 weeks of watching film. Friday night, I was just going through the film more. I knew Kansas City's defense better than they knew themselves. I knew their body movements, the way their linebackers move, the way their safeties move. Tyrann Mathieu, Nick Sorensen, Charvarius Ward. I knew everything they were doing. I got out there on the field. I looked up as I was walking line of scrimmage and said, okay, they're blitzing. And then I was dealing with it right away. I walked up, I said, okay, they're going to bail to cover 2. Ball snap, cover 2. And I knew I had the answers to the test. That's where I was great. That's where my magic superpower was. It wasn't how fast I could run. It was how fast I could diagnose what they were doing.
Yeah.
There you go.
And there it is. I mean, we've talked about this. Why is Brady better than Mahomes? He's better than Mahomes because of Monday through Saturday. How many times have I said this, Mark?
Yeah. There it is. There it is. He doesn't have too much confidence, does he, Chris?
Wow.
But that's the thing. The talk of GOAT so quickly thereafter, Brady, is like, whoa, hang on a second. The guy didn't win a third. He's got 3 other teams that he has to compete against. And let's say 2, maybe 3 other quarterbacks before him that he has to supersede before he gets to be called the GOAT, let alone getting to Brady's stature. He's still got Montana. He's still got you guys, as you guys say, Peyton Manning. I'll throw Aikman in there too, because he just doesn't. Now, I will say this: Mahomes does have an ability that none of those quarterbacks had. But GOAT, stop, please.
No, listen. He's the best quarterback in the NFL right now.
Yes, right now.
Okay. Here's the thing. Okay. Mahomes, I don't think Mahomes is as good as Manning either. I don't think Mahomes is as good as Brady or Manning.
Pre-snap, he's definitely not as good as Manning.
Well, even as what he's reading on the field too afterwards. I just don't think he's as good. Okay. He may be the best quarterback in the NFL right now. But when you look at quarterback play in the NFL, it's about athleticism more so than it is about quarterbacking. The art of quarterbacking is not in the NFL anymore. Guys like Manning and Brady who couldn't jump to save their life, who couldn't
you're
run
right.
from here to there without falling down. But
You're right.
what they could do to a defense and how they could dissect it, they didn't need offensive coordinators at the end of their at their prime, at their best.
In their prime and in their best. Yeah, you're right.
I told you
You're
that. You play off script. If you have to play off script as a quarterback, that means something went wrong on the play that you didn't correct. This is the difference. And as far as New England versus Kansas City, Mark, now, all this crap you keep hearing, does it change our opinion of KC now?
Well, Chris, they're not. Listen, did they have a little bit of a dynasty? Yeah, they do. They got a dynasty. You can call what they've done three Super Bowls a dynasty in a short period of time. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where would you rank them? You'd rank them obviously when I rank them ahead of New England. Not yet. Like, listen, all that talk has to stop. Put it on hold. 10 years from now, if they're still rolling like we did, all right, we'll have the conversation. Or if they hit 6, when they win 6, we'll have the conversation. If they win 4, I don't want to hear it. If they win 5, I don't want to have the conversation. Get to 6, and then we'll talk about it. Because it is about the rings. It is about how many have you won. You want to talk about dynasties and the greatest dynasties. How many have you won?
How long?
And how long? You're not there yet. You're not there. They're not there. So,
So when I'll give you a few. So you have San Fran, Pittsburgh, I guess Dallas, and New England, and then Kansas City. Where do you put them? And Joe, I want to know what you think. And we talked about this yesterday, of course, with Gatone. I want to know if your opinion changed since then.
No. So I would put, obviously, New England. I would put San Fran. I would put them, Chris, either 3rd or 4th, somewhere in the mix with Kansas City, Dallas, and I know you wanted to throw the Steelers in, so I'll throw them in. Because I wasn't going back to the 70s, but they were a dynasty. They won 4 in 6 years. I would probably rank them 4th, Chris. I think, listen, Pittsburgh won 4 in 6 years. You got to put them 3rd, no?
Yeah. To me, I mean, you got New England, San Fran, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and Dallas.
And by the way,
Kansas City story is still being written.
Chris, the only reason they didn't win 5 in 6 years was because Bradshaw got hurt.
Yeah.
Bradshaw got hurt. They would have 3-peated if Bradshaw didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
They were 3-peating. So you want to talk about 3-peat? Pittsburgh
was there 1 year in between the back-to-backs?
I thought they were 2. Thought they won 4 and 6.
So it was like 70. It was like
75 in 75. They won it in 74 and 75. In 76, the Raiders won it. In 77, the Cowboys won it. And then Pittsburgh won it. And then Pittsburgh won it in 78 and 79. Am I showing my age? Jesus Christ. Right? Right? So
1,000 years old you are.
Yeah. Right? But, Chris, one of the year that Oakland beat them in 76, they beat Pittsburgh in the playoff. Bradshaw was hurt. He got hurt. Yeah. If Bradshaw plays in that game, they 3-peat.
Right.
Because they would have went back to the Super Bowl.
Real quick, is this the beginning of the end? Or is this just a little hurdle? Because I mean, New England had those gaps too in winning Super Bowls.
I think it was a hiccup. It was a gap. I think I don't know if they'll go back next year, Chris. No, I don't know if they'll go back next year. Will they go back? Yeah, they can go back as long as they got Mahomes. But Andy Reid, Chris, is going to be 67 next year. He told his wife, I won't coach past 70. What has he got left? A couple of years? So how many more can you win? He's only going to be there a couple of years. Good. Once he goes, Chris, you said it. Mahomes, I'll be unless something happens, I don't know. I think he drives Mahomes.
Yeah. He's going to lose Reid at some point. Because unless they can,
and his security blanket looked like trash on Sunday, and all indications are he's going to probably retire. Kelsey.
So we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens. See if they have a little lag now, and another run comes out, or if the AFC can get their act together and see what Philly did and duplicate that. But Weekly Rewind was presented by Corso Law Group, corsolawgroup.com. Hey, we come back, going to go Pat's preview, talk a little bit about the landscape of the NFL and how it's changed now. Stick around.
No one ever thinks they will be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. Corso Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Call or go online to corsolawgroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys.
Back in with more Pat's Nation. Okay, let's go. Let's stop Pat's preview. Let's talk a little bit about the landscape in the NFL. Mark, want to do that?
Let's go.
All right, Joe, here we go.
Pat's preview.
Okay, so we talked about the game. We talked about Kansas City. We talked about, their place in the pantheon, I guess you would say, of dynasties and all that. How now, when you look at the NFL now, okay, and I started talking about this before we went to break as to, can teams get this figured out now? Can they get some speed in the middle of the field? How now has the landscape changed with the Kansas City loss, at least in the AFC, we could talk about first? Or has it at all? Does it make a difference?
Does what make a difference?
Like, how does in other words, the landscape of the AFC, how's it changed now because they lost, because Kansas City lost? I mean,
I'll tell you what, Chris, Kansas City, when you think about it now, that division.
Didn't I ask that question right the first time, Joe? I mean, Christ, stop looking at your
It
phone.
was a little confusing. It was confusing the way you asked it. You're a little confusing.
Consult the Catone's driving school manual then.
So listen, so their division, Chris, is getting better, right? That was Harbaugh's first year with the Chargers. I know they completely fell apart in the playoffs, but they're only going to get better, Chris. Denver is only going to get better now that they have their quarterback and the coach has his quarterback, right? They're only going to get better, right? They have Knicks. I don't know. Does Pete Carroll make a difference with the Raiders?
No.
Maybe. You don't know. Maybe.
They got nothing there, though. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have
there. Yeah, right. They got nothing there. So, but
when you look at the top end,
those teams are getting better. No, but I just think, Chris, I just think when I say that, though, I don't think you can rubber stamp Kansas City winning every division game anymore. Like, they may lose a game or two in the division where, like, it's been, every year they go undefeated in the division. I don't know if they'll go undefeated, not because I think that division's gotten better. You got, Drake May, good young quarterback in the AFC. You still got Burrow. You still got Lamar Jackson. You still got Allen.
Stroud.
Has it changed? Here's the thing, Chris. This is a copycat league. It's a copycat league. Now that somebody did it, the Eagles gave them a good game in the Super Bowl a couple of years back. San Fran's played them tough a couple of times, couldn't beat them in the Super Bowl. Tampa did it, but everybody just said, well, it was Brady.
Yeah, it was a
Brady
one-off,
beat him.
yeah.
It was a one-off because it was Brady, right? The greatest that's ever done it. But Philly gives you a blueprint on how to beat this team now. Now there's a blueprint on how to beat this team, right? Here's the type of defense you need to have to beat this team with. And you like to bring up the linebackers so
defensive front, yeah.
Kansas City might have to adjust, Chris, because I think that blueprint is there now. They didn't just beat them; they kicked their behind. It was an annihilation. It wasn't just they beat them by a field goal late. They punched them in the mouth and kept punching them.
Yeah. And Kansas City's response to this is going to be interesting, because if their response to this is going to be, well, we're going to load up on Tyreek Hills. We're going to we're going to get some of those guys on the field.
They're going to revamp their wide receiver room.
But that's not going to
revamp. They're going to try to revamp their O-line a little bit. That's what they're going to do, Chris.
But the problem is that really enough? Look, and you know what's funny from a Patriots standpoint, and we come back in the second half of this segment, we're going to talk a little bit about some free agents and things like that. I'm going to get it back to the Patriots a little bit. New England's got the most money. They got a good coach who knows how to put a team together. They have draft capital. So if
you're
a team,
delusional. You're
no, just
delusional.
listen to me.
Here
Now,
we-
I'm not saying they're
I'm
going.
listening to you.
Well,
All
I'm
right.
not saying any of that crap. So be quiet for 5 seconds. Will you please? You're looking at your phone. Look at your phone for a minute. So, if a team can put together a good defensive line and get a couple of speedy line, get some linebacker, get a Fred Warner, get those kind of guys in the center of the field. Yeah, why not? Why not? Because that's what it's going to take. So my point is, I think that there's a chink in the armor. I think these teams that would come in like McDermott and that would completely wet themselves against Kansas City, do things they don't normally do, not understand how to take Kelsey away, let them just free release, all that stuff that we saw Philly overcome and take care of. Now I think teams look at them and say, oh, look, they're not immortal. They can be beat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I don't know if guys like McDermott can do it. I think it's good. I don't know if he can do it, but no, you're right. The blueprint's there, Chris. Now, I'm like I said, I think the blueprint is there because somebody didn't just play them tough. They beat the crap out of them, Chris.
they beat their ass down.
And listen, I think Tampa's defense gave you the blueprint, but nobody paid attention to it, Chris, because everyone just, Brady beat him. Well, now Brady didn't beat him. That defense kicked their behinds for Philadelphia, and they give you the blueprint on what type of a defense it takes to frustrate Mahomes. This is the second time now he's been frustrated in the Super Bowl by a very similar defense who ran a very similar defensive scheme against them. And Andy Reid had no answer for it. No answer. So listen, even if Andy Reid wants to go get some receivers, like you said, Chris, a couple of Tyreek Hill types, does that solve the problem?
Well,
listen,
here's
I have
the
the
thing.
news for you. Philly didn't just have linebackers, Chris. They had the corners, which we
they
said
had it.
last week. They got a secondary.
Yeah.
They had corners. They had safeties.
Well, people are calling them a generational. That pisses me off too. It's like, okay, they're a generational team because people are so reluctant to knock the Chiefs down. They're going to build the Philly up more than they are, just so that we don't have to say the Chiefs weren't as
Chris,
good.
listen,
as
I'm
we
going to tell
thought
you
they
something.
were.
2 weeks
Because
ago,
the experts look stupid after
I'm
this
going to tell
game.
you something. 2
Except
weeks
us.
ago, 2 weeks ago, you and I both said, holy shit, Chris, if it wasn't snowing, the Rams might have beat that team if it wasn't snowing.
Right.
Right?
Well, so
You know.
so the last thing I'll say is this. So we talk about that's the AFC. Can the AFC get their act together? But the reason why I don't think Kansas City is going to win another Super Bowl for a while is because when you look at the NFC,
they're loaded.
how about Detroit's defensive line and their linebackers?
They were just riddled with injuries.
How about Detroit? Their linebackers, their secondary, their defensive front with Hutchinson and company. Forget
Chris,
it.
if they stayed healthy,
They may be better than Phillies.
Yeah, if they stayed healthy, Chris, they probably wouldn't even have been Philly. Detroit would have been the representative of the NFC if they stayed healthy.
They got a good defensive line. Minnesota's got a good defensive line. San Francisco has had a good defensive line. So what they'd have to get over, the hurdles they would have to get over just in the Super Bowl if they got there, I don't know. That's insurmountable unless you really, really fix some stuff. You really fix your offensive line and get a good running game, being Kansas City. And that's not something Andy Reid does or wants to do.
They have to readjust salaries, Chris, over there to bring in guys to fix things because they've got a lot of money tied up with a small group of players.
Right. So free agents may be looking to the NFC teams as a way to try to win versus now it was an automatic, I'm going to go to Kansas City and we're going to win. Now they may be looking at Detroit, Minnesota, Philadelphia for sure, San Francisco, these teams, and maybe even Green Bay a little bit too. Not over.
Oh, it's funny you say that, Chris, because they're saying that they think Devontae Adams is interested in going to San Fran.
Oh, there you go. And there it is.
So there you go.
We'll see what happens. But hey, when we come back, we're going to talk a little more Pat's preview. Now we're going to bring it back to the Patriots, but this portion of Pat's preview was presented by Corso and Catone. Saturdays, noon Eastern. We got Catone's comments, B's and C's. Make sure you're sticking around for that. No flipping.
Mark, I'm serious. I think I lost my mind.
Certainly, it was an exciting show.
I want Murray.
What?
That's
crap
it.
is- What is wrong with
Get him on this damn
you?
show.
Lost your mind tonight.
That's all I have to say.
Lost your mind.
What are you writing now?
So I'm working over here. You're talking about nonsense. I'm working.
That's why we are the real deal New England Field. It's going to be real.
Back in with more Pats Nation. Okay, let's stick into the preview now. We haven't even talked about the Patriots all friggin' show, Mark.
Yeah. Well, listen. They listen. Why? It's Super Bowl week. It was Super Bowl week.
Yeah.
We're nowhere near going to a Super Bowl.
Oh, we're going. That's it. We're going. We're coming. We're coming back. Well, okay, let's see. What do we need to do in order to get us there? You know, we got the most money. We got capital. We got the 4th pick in the draft.
You
On
know
and
what?
on it goes.
Chris, you know what
Hmm.
concerns me? Now everybody's saying, well, you saw how Philly did it. You got to build in the trenches. Oh, I know that, but I don't want to hear that, Chris. Oh, you got to build the trenches now. That's what everyone's saying this week.
Well, that's fine. Okay. That's fine to do if you can get some good free agents. Now, what we've been hearing this week a little bit. Do we agree that the top free agent out there is probably Higgins?
On the offensive side of the ball,
offensively.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So, and I mean, you could maybe even argue he's the best free agent. Well, Garrett's not a free agent, though, is he?
He's
It would
not
be
a free agent.
So,
No.
you may want to argue that Higgins is the best one all around out there.
Yep.
Well, you're hearing this week that New England, once again, I mean, we've heard this crap before, that they're all in and trying to bring this guy in. Okay.
And that's if he hits free agency, Chris. And Kansas and Cincinnati doesn't do something to keep him.
He's going to hit free agency.
Okay.
There is no way on earth that the Brown family is going to pay Higgins, because what's it going to cost? First
They're
of all,
gonna have to pay Chase.
it's going to cost for Higgins. Going to average annual salary is going to be in the mid-30s somewhere for him.
I
Okay?
think it'll be closer to 30.
I think it'll be like 32.
I don't know if
33.
I don't know if he's worth mid-30s. I don't know if anybody will go that high for him. But maybe, Chris, you might be right. You might be be
Only
right.
because
So
it's a distressed. It's not a big
okay.
class.
So say he gets 32, 33.
Okay, that's average annual, which is all nonsense anyway. It's
Yep.
the guaranteed money that makes a difference. So, I mean, what's he going to get guaranteed?
At least 50, 60, 70 million,
Somewhere in there, right?
somewhere in there.
So there's only so many teams that are going to be able to do that. Now, Cincinnati's
Chris,
not one of those.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you something. Kraft is not giving that much guaranteed money either.
Well, I think I don't know, because does Kraft have enough egg on his face now? Does he have enough egg on his face? Because we kept talking about they haven't been humbled enough in the last several years. I think they have now. I think it's come to a point where they are humbled, Mark, and
Hopefully.
we're Vrabel sitting
That's
there
the only
going,
way.
"Hey,
That's
you
the
know."
only way they're going to really spend the money.
Right. But Cincinnati is not doing that, because then Chase has got 1 year left, so he's looking for a contract now.
They screwed up, Chris. They should have did whatever they had to do to sign Chase last offseason, because then now you know what you're in for. Now maybe you could have did something with Higgins, but now it's too late, Chris. You can't sign both. You're right. You're not going to be able to sign both those guys. Plus, they already gave Burrow a boatload of money.
Right. And you're going to have to sign.
Do you think that just think about, imagine the two guys in the office with Kraft, Vrabel or Belichick, and Vrabel's like, we need this guy. We're going to have to pay. And Belichick with the attitude like, we don't need to pay this guy. Do you think Kraft will fork over the money now that you get somebody with Vrabel's stature saying, we need this guy, we need to spend some money?
Well, I don't fully believe that it was Belichick pulling back the purse strings to begin with. I thought it was always Kraft anyway. I thought it was always Kraft that didn't want to pay anyway.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then it's bad luck for us, because if Vrabel's sitting there saying, I want this guy, and Kraft says, whoa, wait a minute, whoa, that's not a smart contract.
I have to think, Chris, that Vrabel got some kind of assurances when he took this job that, yeah, listen, we're gonna spend money and spend resources, Mike, to make this team a winner again. I'm sure if Vrabel asked the question, are you guys going to spend or with all this money you got, or you going to penny pinch? Because if you're penny pinching, I can't do this.
Right. Listen, as I said, I don't. Is he humbled enough? Has he been humbled enough?
Maybe.
You know.
So you think? So you think if Higgins? hits the market-
But to end this, I don't
Oh.
think Cincinnati's going to pay him. They got to
Okay.
pay. By the way, they got to pay the defensive end too over there.
Hendrickson. So you think if or Hendrickson, whatever his name is, if you
Hendricks, yeah.
if you think Higgins hits the market, we're gonna be all in.
That's what that. I mean, yes, yeah, I do think we're going to be all in because I think that
Well,
think that there's enough
So
clout.
what
now.
else do we need here? What else do we
Okay,
need, Chris?
so
if
that's
we- like,
Higgins. But
do you
but
think?
before we end him, is he worth it? Is he a one? You and I have always talked about this.
I don't know if he's a one, Chris. I don't know if he's worth all that money. I mean, is Chase making him look better than he really is? Possibly. I think he's definitely a two, but that what he's going to demand isn't two money. But I don't think you have a choice, Chris. You have to do something.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice
All right, well, let's put
because
a pin.
you
we'll-
can't gamble that who are you going to get in the draft. This isn't a great
No.
wide receiver
And that's
class
the
in this
problem.
draft, and that's the problem. If
See,
you were
that's
sitting
why
at
my-
4 last year, you would have had 5 number 1 receivers to choose from.
Right.
5.
See, that's why I'm all in on using your draft capital and the money. Because I want to go I want to go pull somebody out of another place. Like I want to pull AJ Brown out of Philly. I want to get him out of there. You can do it. There's a way to do it.
I don't
There's a
think
number.
you're doing it, Chris,
Yeah,
this year. Not if
bullshit.
they
There's
win
a
the Super
number.
Bowl.
There's a number, and there's a draft pick, and there's an amount of draft capital that Philly will take because Philly's sitting there saying, we run the ball. We can live without AJ Brown.
All right.
That's
Listen,
what I
it's
want.
like that old. It's like that old adage. Remember the $1 Million Man from WWF, WWE wrestling? Everybody's got their price. He used to say the $1 Million Man. You say everybody's got their price. He used to say.
You got so many issues. You know that? You really do. Just walk around throwing money into the crowd.
Yeah,
Remember?
remember?
But okay. What do you think about Staley in Baltimore as far as an offensive line free agent tackle? Why would Buffalo let him out? Baltimore. Why would Baltimore let him out the
Because
door?
Baltimore, Chris, has a lot of guys that they're paying too, and they got another guy over there, Stanley Roberts over there, who's like 34, but I think he could come in for a couple of years, give you like 2 years, and solidify you with a veteran. I think Cleveland's got the kid Conklin, who's
Yeah.
been injured the last couple of years, but I think you could get Conklin out of there. He's a professional lineman, Chris. He's better than what you have at the tackle position. I think you could pry Conklin out of Cleveland. I think Vrabel knows what he has left in the tank.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just looking at Staley's age because is it Staley or Stanley? I think right.
Stanley, that's who I
Stanley,
meant, not
that's what I
Robert.
meant.
Stanley, that's who I meant. Stanley.
But
Stanley's 34 years old, Chris.
he's a free agent though, is he not?
He is. I have to think that he'll stay there, but
Oh, he's 30.
he's 30. I thought he was 34.
No, I believe he went to Notre Dame, right?
Yeah. All right. So if he's 30, Chris, he's serviceable for 2-3 years.
See, the problem is you get him in with enough time. Like if you go and pay a guy like that and you bring him in, the first question you ask is, well, why is Baltimore letting him go out the door, free agency? Why aren't they paying him one? But you said, well, they got some other guys. Okay, fine. Now you bring him in. You say, well, it's going to take us a year or so to get. Is he going to still be in prime form by the time we're ready to win? But you could, I mean, or else you'll never do anything if you.
Yeah. I don't think you could take that philosophy, Chris. You got to bring You got to bring guys in there. You don't have a choice. What about on the defensive side of the ball?
Sweat.
Right, Montrez Sweat from if Philly lets him go, yeah, he'll be on the board. He'll be one of the better defensive players on the board. I think after the season he just had, Chris, he's going to test it.
Because, but I mean, again, the only issue with Sweat is he's got an injury history a little bit.
He does. He does.
And so, but you're going to say this Stanley does too. He's got an injury. These guys, there's all some issues here and there. There's always some risk. But I tell you what, you put Sweat on that defensive line with
Deion White.
on the other side and Barmore in the center. That's pretty damn good
You know
defensive
who else
line
is
now.
a free agent? You know who else is a free agent, Chris? They got Jalen Carter and they got Jordan Davis, and they're gonna have to pay those guys. Two guys from Georgia. And this guy was in the backfield all day Sunday, Chris. He comes off. He's like in the rotation. Milton Williams,
Yeah.
defensive tackle from Philly. He disrupted that backfield
Oh, he
every
was
time.
fantastic in
Every
that game.
time he's on the field, he's a free agent. I'd go get him. Put him next to Bondmore.
Right. And so if you're wanting to boost this defensive line and you're wanting to be copycat and all that, if Kansas City's the team you're catching,
And you
these are
want to
guys
be a
you need.
copycat, then these are the guys you need, and you got the money to go get them.
right.
And now you can fill in the other holes through the draft.
The last
know?
question, because we talked last week about Cooper Kupp, and that makes sense for New England. And they could even do Higgins and him.
Yeah.
You could.
Good.
But the question I have for you is this. What do you give up for Micah Parsons? Because I really believe you can get him out of Dallas.
Okay, if you can get Micah Parsons out of Dallas,
Because they got a
I'm gonna-
cartoon character for a coach now over there, too.
I'd give up the number 4 for Parsons.
It's going to take more than that.
Well, okay, so if you come up with a package that's reasonable, I would give up the 4th pick for him. Would you?
In a half a second. I wouldn't even blink before I did that.
There's nobody in this draft on his level.
No.
At that, I'd say, oh, you can get this guy at 4. There's nobody in this draft that's as good as him. Nobody.
No. Unless you think Carter can get there, but no.
Now, I don't think Carter will ever be as good
Parsons,
as no.
Parsons can play anywhere on the defense. Anywhere.
No,
You
it's
could
not-
put
you're
him
not-
inside.
nah,
You could
nah.
put him outside off the edge. You can put him in coverage. You can put him. You can even put him, drop him back as like a safety sometimes. I mean, this dude is. Yeah, I
No,
would give up
he's-
everything
he's-
for that guy.
Yeah, I would. And maybe you can get him out of there. I don't know. Listen, I'm going to tell you what, Chris. The way this draft board is setting up, either Carter, the edge guy from Penn State, or Travis Hunter is going to end up falling into your lap because the 2 quarterbacks are going top 4. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
Teams need quarterbacks. Both quarterbacks are going in the top 3.
Yeah, the teams will talk themselves into it.
They're going to talk themselves into it. So the odd person out, whether it's Carter or Hunter, is going to end up on the board at 4. I don't know. If it's Hunter, do you take him?
Yeah, you got.
I don't know. Carter, I know they're taking Carter. If he's there, one of those guys, Chris, is going to be there at 4. They're going to be.
Well,
Or if it's Hunter and you go get and you've signed Higgins,
no, well then no.
and maybe you traded for Kupp. Do you not need a receiver now? Do you trade down a couple of slots and take a tackle?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
All right.
I think so. So stay tuned because we're going to have more talk about this in the Pats Nation. But Pats Nation was presented by Carson and Catone Saturday, noon Eastern. Hey, come next week, we're going to have B's and C's, Catone's comments, more Patriots talk, and come back to this show next Sunday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Going to start our position by position breakdown in free agency, draft, and so much more. We are the Pats Nation. See you next Sunday.